In April 2026, a Komatsu 930E haul truck rolled into position at Barrick's Nevada gold mines, lined up against its haul road, and went to work. 290 tons of payload capacity. No driver. No cab occupant. No human inside the cab at any point during the cycle. That truck was the 1,000th autonomous mining haul truck Komatsu has commissioned since the Frontrunner system went commercial in 2008. More than 500 of those 1,000 units are 930E trucks. The fleet runs in the Pilbara of Western Australia, in the Copperbelt of Chile, across multiple Canadian operations, and now in Nevada. The Caterpillar response is called MineStar Command. It exists. It runs. It is a real autonomous product. And it is years behind Komatsu on commissioned fleet scale, with the gap widening every quarter. The reason has nothing to do with Caterpillar engineering talent, and everything to do with the boardroom decisions made in Peoria, Chicago, and Irving, Texas, while Komatsu engineers were quietly compounding a 15-year head start. If this is your first time here, hit subscribe. We document the corporate decisions inside boardrooms in Peoria, Chicago, and Irving, Texas, that hollowed out one of the most respected industrial brands of the 20th century. The data tells the story. To understand how Caterpillar lost the autonomy race, you have to remember what Caterpillar was at the start of the 2000s. Through the late 1990s and into the 2000s, Caterpillar was the dominant force in ultra-class mining haulage worldwide. The 797F was the king of the 400-ton payload class. The 793F was the workhorse of 250-ton haulage across copper, gold, iron ore, and oil sands. The CAT dealer network was the most responsive on the planet. The CAT engineering pipeline produced incremental improvement after incremental improvement. The company had every structural advantage a manufacturer can have: market share, dealer leverage, customer lock-in through parts and service, decades of operator familiarity, the kind of position competitors stare at and feel queasy. Then Komatsu did something that was, at the time, quietly insane. In 2008, Komatsu launched the Frontrunner autonomous haulage system as a commercial product. Not a research project, not a prototype demonstration. A commercial product, deployed at Rio Tinto operations in Western Australia. The first commercially deployed autonomous mining haul truck system in the world. The bet was enormous. The R&D investment was eye-watering. The reliability problem in mining autonomy is brutal. Mining operations run in dust. They run in heat. They run in cold. They run on dirt roads that change shape between shifts. They run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in environments where a single autonomous system failure can stop the entire haul road and crater the cycle time for an entire shift. Solving that problem at commercial scale, with paying customers willing to bet their production targets on it, took the kind of patient capital that public American companies running on quarterly earnings cycles rarely have access to. Komatsu had that patient capital. The company's culture, deeply influenced by long-horizon Japanese engineering philosophy, treated Frontrunner as a multi-decade strategic bet. The engineering team was given the runway to fail at the system over and over until it worked. The corporate communications were patient. The investor expectations were managed against a long-term thesis rather than a quarterly deployment count. The customers, including Rio Tinto and later Fortescue Metals, BHP, Barrick, Vale, Newmont, and others, were brought along as co-development partners rather than treated as transaction counterparties. The fleet management software matured year after year. The cycle time data accumulated. The diesel per ton benchmarks tightened. The institutional muscle for running autonomous mining trucks compounded. While Komatsu was doing that, Caterpillar was doing something different. The company that defined American mining iron was being slowly reshaped by a corporate philosophy that valued financial engineering over product engineering. The R&D budget as a percentage of revenue compressed. The share buyback programs grew. The executive compensation structure was reweighted toward earnings per share and total shareholder return rather than long-horizon product investment. The CAT MineStar command system did get built. The engineers who built it were good. But the system arrived later, with smaller, deployed scale, and with the customer relationships that should have made CAT the obvious autonomy partner already drifting toward Komatsu by the time CAT's product was ready for serious commercial scale-up. You can trace the corporate decision pattern in the headquarters moves. In 2017, Caterpillar moved its corporate headquarters out of Peoria, Illinois. Peoria was the factory town. Peoria was where the 793F was designed. Peoria was where the engineers who knew the iron lived, worked, and trained the dealers. The headquarters moved to the Chicago area, into the Deerfield corridor, closer to financial markets and farther from the factory floor. 5 years later, in June 2022, the company announced it was relocating again, this time to Irving, Texas. Same logic. Closer to global talent recruitment. Closer to financial sophistication. Closer to the corporate America of the 2020s and farther from the corporate America of the 20th century that had built the company. The MBA suits won the internal argument. The pencil pushers won. The engineering culture that had defined CAT for decades started to drain out of the building. While those two relocations were being executed, Komatsu was doing the opposite. Komatsu's leadership stayed close to the engineering. The Frontrunner program got more investment, not less. The autonomous fleet count grew from dozens to hundreds to nearly 1,000. The deployment footprint expanded from a single mine in the Pilbara to operations across 4 continents. The acquisition of Joy Global in 2017, the same year Caterpillar moved out of Peoria, brought Komatsu the P&H rope shovel line and the Latorno wheel loader line, both with deep American mining heritage. The map of who owned the American mining iron pedigree was being quietly redrawn, and the redrawing favored the Japanese company that was building its autonomous lead, while the American company was managing its real estate portfolio. Quick break before we get into what happened next. If you're following how Caterpillar lost segment after segment, subscribe so the next one lands in your feed. Now back to it. By the middle of the 2020s, the autonomous mining truck market had matured to the point where mine planners reviewing fleet replacement decisions could look at deployed fleet data, cycle time benchmarks, and software maturity across competing platforms. The numbers favored Komatsu. The 1,000th Frontrunner truck commissioned at Barrick Nevada Gold Mines in April 2026 is not just a milestone number for a press release. It represents 15-plus years of operating data, 3 software platform generations, hundreds of millions of cycle iterations, thousands of operator training hours, and a customer base that is co-invested in the platform. A mine planner specifying a new fleet for a copper operation in Chile, or an iron ore operation in Western Australia, or a gold operation in Nevada, looks at that deployed scale and treats Komatsu autonomy as the default. The procurement risk of choosing CAT MineStar Command over Komatsu Frontrunner is now real and quantifiable. CAT has fewer deployed reference sites. CAT has a shorter operating data record. CAT is the catch-up competitor, in a market where the catch-up position carries a structural cost. Caterpillar has not given up. MineStar Command continues to develop. CAT has deployed autonomous trucks at operations, including some North American mines, and the system works. The accurate framing is that CAT trails Komatsu on deployed fleet scale and lost the first mover position. That is the documented reality, not a polemical claim. But the gap is the kind of gap that, in a capital-intensive industry with long fleet replacement cycles, takes a generation to close, if it can be closed at all. Mine operations replace fleets on cycles that run 10 to 15 years. Every multi-truck procurement that goes to Komatsu, rather than Caterpillar, locks in another decade of Frontrunner cycle time data, fleet management integration, and operator familiarity that compounds the moat. There is a related autonomy gap that the same corporate decision pattern explains. The Komatsu 830E ultra-class haul truck, 240 tons of payload, is built in Peoria, Illinois. Komatsu's North American mining truck plant sits in the original Caterpillar hometown. Every 830E that rolls off the line in Peoria is a small piece of evidence about which company is investing in American mining iron in the 2020s and which company moved its headquarters to Texas. The engineers in Peoria, regardless of which logo is painted on the building, are still building world-class mining trucks. The question is, whose corporate culture is supporting them in doing that work? The competitive landscape outside the CAT versus Komatsu duopoly is worth a brief mention because it sharpens the picture. Hitachi Construction Machinery has its own autonomous truck platform, deployed at scale at several Australian iron ore operations and growing in other regions. The Liebherr T284 Ultra-Class truck supports autonomous operation modes and has been integrated into autonomous fleet management software at some major mining customers. Sandvik has its underground AutoMine platform that addresses a different segment of the mining equipment market entirely, with autonomous underground loaders and trucks deployed at hard rock underground operations in Finland, Sweden, Canada, Chile, and Australia. The autonomous mining equipment market in 2026 is a multi-supplier market, with Komatsu holding the dominant surface haulage position, Sandvik holding the dominant underground position, and the remaining suppliers, including Caterpillar, Hitachi, Liebherr, and Epiroc, competing for the segments where the dominant supplier does not already have a structural, deployed fleet advantage. The CAT position in this market is competitive in some specific segments, and trailing in the segments that mattered most to the overall trajectory. It is worth keeping autonomy and electrification separate, because they are different races with different timelines. Caterpillar's 793 battery electric prototype targets commercialization around 2027. That is a different bet on a different timescale. The electrification race is still open. Caterpillar may yet take a leadership position in electric ultra-class haulage. But this video is about autonomy specifically, and on autonomy, the data is clear. Komatsu launched commercially in 2008, accumulated a 15-year deployment lead, and as of April 2026 has 1,000 autonomous trucks commissioned globally. Caterpillar built MineStar Command, deployed it at meaningful scale, and trails. That is the autonomous mining truck race as it sits today. The accumulated FrontRunner operating data is the moat that compounds with every deployment. Over 15 years of commercial deployment, Komatsu has processed billions of cycles of autonomous truck data across multiple continents, multiple ore bodies, multiple climate conditions, multiple haul road profiles, and multiple integration scenarios with the wider mine fleet. The dataset informs the next generation of fleet management software, the next iteration of obstacle avoidance logic, the next refinement of cycle time optimization, the next improvement in operator interface design for the human supervisors who manage the autonomous fleet from the control room. Komatsu's autonomous control rooms at major Australian, Chilean, and North American operations process telemetry from hundreds of trucks simultaneously, and the institutional knowledge of how to design those control rooms, how to train the supervisors, how to integrate with the mine's wider dispatch system has been built one mine at a time over 15 years. Caterpillar's MineStar Command team has the engineering talent to build the equivalent system. The constraint is not engineering capability. The constraint is the data set. The deployed fleet data that Komatsu has accumulated cannot be replicated through R&D investment alone. It can only be built one autonomous truck at a time, one mine at a time, one operating year at a time. CAT is 15 years behind on the dataset, and the dataset compounds. The mining customer base has noticed. Rio Tinto's Pilbara iron ore operations in Western Australia became one of the original showcase deployments for FrontRunner and have continued to expand the autonomous fleet across multiple mine sites. BHP's iron ore operations in the same region have run autonomous Komatsu trucks at scale for years. Fortescue Metals Group has pursued its own autonomous and electric mining programs, with significant Komatsu involvement. Ultra-Class South America. Copper operators, including some of the largest copper producers in Chile, have deployed autonomous Komatsu fleets at production scale. The Barrick Nevada Gold Mines deployment that took delivery of the 1,000th FrontRunner truck in April 2026 is the latest in a long line of major mining operators choosing Komatsu autonomy for new, replacement fleet decisions. The pattern across these procurement decisions is consistent. When a major mining operator runs a competitive bid for an autonomous haulage fleet, the conversation increasingly starts with Komatsu as the incumbent and asks whether anything else can match the deployed fleet reference base. The answer, increasingly, is no. The engineering talent question is worth addressing directly because the easy reading of the CAT decline story is that CAT lost its engineering talent. That reading is wrong. The Caterpillar engineers who designed the 797F, who built the mechanical drivetrain that ran ultra-class mining for 30 years, who developed the MineStar Command platform when the autonomy race finally became a corporate priority, are world-class engineers. The engineering talent inside Caterpillar in 2026 is comparable to the engineering talent inside Komatsu, inside Liebherr, inside any of the major mining equipment competitors. The talent is not the issue. The constraint is the corporate operating system that allocates capital, sets priorities, and decides which long-horizon R&D programs get the runway to compound into market-leading positions. The CAT engineers, who could have built a market-leading autonomy platform, were not given the corporate runway to compound the lead during the years when the autonomy race was being decided. By the time the corporate priorities aligned, the competitor had a 15-year deployed fleet lead and the structural advantages that come with it. The CAT engineering team's job, in 2026, is harder than the Komatsu engineering team's job, because CAT is catching up rather than leading, and catching up in a capital-intensive, long-cycle industry is fundamentally a different problem than leading. Caterpillar remains a major global manufacturer. CAT is still the dominant ultra-class haul truck supplier in plenty of segments. The 797F is still the king of 400-ton mechanical haulage. The CAT dealer network is still the most responsive parts and service organization on most continents. The point is not that CAT is gone. The point is that on the specific race that mattered most over the last 15 years, the autonomy race that has rewritten what mining haulage looks like, CAT lost the first-mover position to a competitor whose corporate culture supported the kind of patient, long-horizon engineering investment that American shareholder primacy stopped supporting somewhere around the time the headquarters left Peoria. If you've worked on an autonomous mining operation in the last decade, drop the brand and the fleet count in the comments. Tell me how the bid process went when Komatsu and Caterpillar both put autonomy on the table. Let's see how many of us watched this transfer happen in real time. Every mine planner who spec'd Komatsu autonomy a decade ago saw this coming long before the boardroom in Texas admitted it. The fleet management dashboards told the story. The cycle time data told the story. The diesel per ton numbers told the story. The 830 E-trucks rolling off the line in Peoria on CAT's home turf told the story. The smart professionals read it early. The MBAs are still pretending they didn't. See you in the next one.